completed tax of every municipality in the province. Saanich did...
Speak for yourself.
Well, Saanich did take a few motions to UBCM, and I remember we did an analysis, it might have been through the CRD, of how many millions of dollars we were collecting locally. And so our motion, one of the motions was that we asked them to take 20% out of what they were collecting from us locally in the region and put it towards affordable housing. That passed unanimously. Councillor Derman's vote passed unanimously, and the letters come back. So I couldn't count how many times it's been at UBCM. We had it again at UBCM on the 2012 floor. So, but I do think, I agree that we need to recognize that they've done some changes. And one of the things is around, for example, any new homeowners do not pay property transfer tax on homes under $475,000, right?
Correct. My son just benefited from that.
Yeah, and so, Saanich, just over 30% of our homes in Saanich are under $500,000. So, you know, 30% of our homes are
yes,
within
that's
that.
the first purchase.
Oh, we shouldn't be debating
Sorry, I
this.
apologize. I'm just so excited to
I know
discuss
you're
it.
excited. I also just want to reflect that I personally believe that it's really important that we recognize some of the things they've done or something within the letter. I appreciate that this is a letter, not a motion, another motion to UBCM, but I think we need to recognize some of the things they've done. I did look up about the example you gave, and what they have on their site is that family exemptions, transfer of principal residence, you know, so there are some exemptions. But other than that, I would just request that the letter at least recognize some of the things, but again, reinforce that any of these type of programs do have an impact on affordability.
Thank you. Next on the list is Councillor Murdoch, and Brooklyn, and then Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be happy to support this. As many of my colleagues have said, this has been an issue that certainly for the time that I've been on council has been a discussion of interest, and I know long before that. The increasing value in properties, of course, drives the cost of that tax, and so it becomes prohibitive for some folks, for a number of folks in our community, when we're already dealing with unaffordable costs for housing. I thought that the recommendation was cleverly worded. It says, take action to reduce the negative impacts on housing affordability, which I could support, and I would presuppose means a lot more than just adjusting the percentage rate on the tax, by reducing the property transfer tax. And I would take that as a by example. I think that there's a discussion that can take place here on how the value of property can be leveraged in order to create affordability for property purchasers. We're dealing with an area where we've got some very high costs for land, and getting into the market is increasingly unaffordable for particularly new home buyers. There is an opportunity within the property transfer tax to leverage some of that revenue in order to create affordable housing, to create funds to help people get into their homes, to create programs to help people get into their homes. So absolutely, I support the idea of reducing the amount that people are charged so we get rid of that as a barrier. But I also think that rather than dumping the $1 billion into general revenue, we should be using that opportunity to create affordability so that people can continue to buy homes in our community, put down roots in our community, and contribute to the economy in our community. So thanks to Councillor Haynes for the report, thanks to his committee for the endorsement. I'll certainly be supporting it, and I look forward to a nuanced conversation about how we can talk about property transfer tax in the future.
Councillor Brooklyn, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Property purchase tax, like has been said, it's been around a long time, and I've been on council now for a number of years, and it does come up every year or two. And there's been a lot of discussion in the chamber and debate, and at the conferences we go to, it comes up there on a regular basis. And many letters have been sent about this unfair tax, but it does raise $1 billion. But I also strongly believe there's wisdom in knowing when to send a letter. And I'm not sure this is the appropriate time, the way the letter is formed. And there's no question, I do support, like the rest of council, affordable housing. And I have to ask myself, do I really care where the money comes from, what department it comes out of? Do I want to tell the government where to get the money from for how to keep the housing affordable? I'm not interested in that. I'm just saying to the government, my government, we need more to go into these areas. And I think it's important that we explain that. And just, when I looked at the motion too, I find it, I guess, hard to support, to move on the way it is, and I would feel better if the mover of it took it back to the committee, wrote it, and like has been said, there are other things that we can include in it. But I think we need to put a lot of thought into that letter, because I've said in the past, they have a big blue box, just like we have at the end of your desk there, that they know how to put the letters in, if they've heard it 10 times before. So I hope we will consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sanders?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That frightening big blue box used to be the gray bin, so now it's blue. I certainly like the recommendation. I think that this is an important issue, and it's been over and over, as we've heard before. I think when the late Councillor Gillespie was on this council, we heard about it every meeting, or every opportunity. Correct, Councillor Workland? He was not very happy about the property purchase tax. That being said, I'm afraid I'm like Councillor Workland to take it back to the committee and do some more wordsmithing, because I think the recommendation is fine. But, and Councillor Bryce says, this is a huge pot of money that the province has to figure out where they could get that other money from. Because there is some language in the preamble, and kudos to you, Councillor Haynes, for being a little bit more, concise this time. But again, the first paragraph about motions, and that doesn't have a lot of bearing on this. And when you talk about the financial burden to young families and then get into seniors, I prefer when you talk about first home purchasers. Because, some young couples get a long time to get there and they get a little bit older. So, it rather than being specific like that. Also, when you refer to the extra cost that people have, like the municipal density bonus fees, amenities, and other charges that the building industry isn't happy about having. But such as the provincial government, as local government, we want those density bonus fees and such, because the builder on there, they're getting some benefit, and by that we charge them a little bit of money, which in turn we operate our municipality. So I think the idea is good. It never hurts to remind the provincial government, and we have, just only 3 years ago at UBCM, and that it doesn't hurt to talk to them again about it. But perhaps, a little bit more positive note and a more concise note to go to the province. Thank you.
Councillor Haynes, a final word?
Yes, I'd like to talk to some of the concerns raised by my colleagues. The FCM urged all governments to work together to fix Canada's housing crunch, increase housing affordability, and strengthen Canada's housing system. I include the municipality in that, I include the province in that, and I include the federal government in that. And here you see a package of 4 reports. I'm glad that Councillor Sanders raised the point there that there are seniors mentioned in here. This is not just for first-time home buyers, and I'm not sure why people think that's the case. This letter is also in support of the seniors advocate who's arguing for affordable homes for seniors. These are not first-time home buyers, but the cost of living and aging in place, in part for some, means moving to a smaller home, and on that home they will be paying provincial transfer tax. On my Workland councillor's point about timing, this is the time. This is the time. Why? We're going into a federal election. FCM says let's speak to all levels of government. We should be showing the residents of Saanich that we're concerned about affordability, and we raise our voice in this federal election. The federal election is one level of government. While we talk to that government, we can also talk to the provincial government. And if we think that we're leaving out the municipal government, as we discussed at the strategic planning session, I've undertaken that within this year I would work with our Director of Planning and others to bring some suggestions forward on how our own municipality can help reduce the cost of housing. And I intimately embrace, I've got to be careful I use those words, Councillor Murdoch's point that within Saanich, our own land use and other aspects need to be looked at. So that said, I do not withdraw the motion. I will not send it back to PTED. I ask for your support today. Thank you.
Is there any more discussion? Being mindful of the time here, we still haven't got to committee of the whole. Councillor German, if you can make it quick.
Yeah, quickly, Mr. Mayor. Don't want to confuse the issues on these because while we're talking about first-time homeowner buyers primarily, with a lot of seniors, they already own their home. And then there are equity instruments such as reverse mortgages and so forth available. So I think this ought to be aimed at people who are buying a home, because that's what the property tax affects. And how can we mitigate the initial cost to them when they have only the equity that they're putting as a down payment, which could be very, very high. Thank you.
Seeing no more discussion, I'll call the question on the motion. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Whittle is opposed. Motion carries. Thank you. Last item on each, reports from council members, affordable independent housing for seniors. Councillor Haynes.
I will definitely, be my pleasure. This is the Affordable Independent Housing for Seniors. The report of Councillor Haynes is recommending the council write to the Premier as well as ministers requesting support for the recent report from the Seniors Advocate for BC regarding actions that would enable seniors to age as independently as possible in their own homes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I would like to talk to this motion. If there's a seconder, I will.
Second.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bryce. I would like to thank those councillors who took time in their busy schedules to give me their suggestions. It has helped me in developing these reports. I think this report talks to itself. In the service of time, I did have a long conversation with Isabel Mackenzie. I have her full report here, I have her executive summary, but rather than put my comments in now, I'll save them to the wrap-up after my colleagues have spoken. Thank you.
Over to the seconder, Councillor Bryce.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Seniors Advocate has produced a number of well-reasoned reports, which I suspect are being carefully considered by government. This motion to write a letter of support, I think, will be helpful. My observation is that Isabel Mackenzie brings forward very practical suggestions, and this one I think is a gem. It seems so logical when you think that we've had the property tax deferral program for decades, and this is like a next chapter in it to allow people who are in their homes to defer the cost of renovations or adjustments so they can stay in their homes. And then obviously at the time ultimately the home is sold, the money is repaid. It's simple, it makes sense. I would think the government might very well be inclined to support it, and I think that a letter from us might just be that extra nudge, so I'm glad to do it.
Councillor German and then Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I'm more than happy to support this particular report from Councillor Haynes. There are a lot of issues for seniors to age in place, and certainly affordability is one of them. One aspect of that affordability is the need they have at a certain stage to have somebody assist them in their home. And it might be, I haven't read all of Isabel Mackenzie's report where it's part of it, but certainly I think the province could do much more to help provide affordable services that assisted seniors during the day in their home. Some people move out of their home because they're no longer able to meet all their needs independently. They can meet most of them, and they also find it very expensive to bring somebody in to assist with those needs. So that's the kind of supportive program that I think would be, in the long term, actually economically beneficial, because it's far cheaper to assist seniors to live in their home than to move them into other facilities. Thank you.
Councillor Brownhoff and then Workman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'll support the motion. The report was very good. The other thing I'd like to make a suggestion is that you add the Minister of Health. And the reason I say that is independent living is a key for older residents to live a healthy and active life. And I know working with the Ministry of Health and through the Age-Friendly Communities program, they are engaging the health authorities and municipalities to work on programs for aging population. And I know that Isabel has also referred her document to the Minister of Health, and I didn't see it listed in your list. There may be other issues, provincially, federally, even municipally. I'd like to also recommend that this council invite Ms. McKenzie to come and be a delegation and go through her report, and perhaps provide us with any opportunities she sees at the municipal level that we may try and address. You know, for Saanich, we did the adaptable housing policies a number of years ago, and so we have over 700 homes within multifamily buildings that are created under the visibility and adaptability, so that's good. I was interested in the report because I was saying to my colleague, Councillor Sanders, that both my aunt and uncle were vets, and VIP comes in, and that's the veteran program. They come in and they put the handlebars and everything. They didn't ask the apartment owner, and so they just come in. So anyway, I'm supportive, but I'd like to ask for that small amendment to your motion.
Friendly amendment, I welcome it. Thank you,
Okay,
Councillor
to add the
Brown.
Minister of Health. Thank you very much.
Councillor Workman.
Thank you, Mayor. I do strongly support this, and I'd like to thank Councillor Hayes for bringing this forward. It's interesting with seniors, they're quite different from the generation coming behind them. And the number of seniors that have talked to me about their increased taxes, and I tell them about the tax referral. And one thing about seniors, they do not like debt. They don't want to owe money. Even if they have equity in their home, they don't want to see a debt against it. So it doesn't work for everyone, but it'll work for some. Appreciate it coming forward.
Thank you. Councillor Sanders.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I support this coming forward as well. The questions, of course, I have not about Mr. Councillor Haynes' motion or discussion, although there's been a few things on the preamble letter. It's more about, and Councillor Brownhoff just has mentioned, but not asking permission. And as a landlord and property manager, when there's a statement in here about amending the Residential Tenancy Act, so to either eviction, fine, or denial, I find that quite interesting. You could evict somebody if they didn't, if they want to put grab bars up, or fine them. I can't know how you can fine them. Certainly a homeowner can deny them because the house might not be able to structurally manage to have grab bars up, and there would be a liability. They go in and put grab bars up, there's no supports in the back of the wall, the cedar grabs the bar, it falls out, and anyway. That's off topic, and this is an issue that they have with Isabel McKenzie on that type of an issue. But so I certainly would support it going through, and I agree with what Councillor Brownhoff says about adding the Ministry of Health. And I also like her suggestion about having Isabel McKenzie come in and do a presentation to us.
Thank you. Is there any more discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question on the motion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. All right, thank you for that. So that is the last item on our regular portion of the council meeting, and then I need a motion to adjourn the council and move the committee of the whole. Second. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. All right. I'll invite Councilor Dermott up to the microphone. We'll begin in a second. This will be a good time to take a potty break.
Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to tonight's Committee of the Whole portion of the meeting. I thought for a while that we weren't going to get there, but we have. We have only one item on the Committee of the Whole tonight. Procedure will be as follows. I will ask the clerk to introduce the item, after which I'll ask if there's any additional information from staff and give council an opportunity to ask questions of staff. When that's complete, I will ask the applicant to present their application. Council will have opportunity to ask questions of the applicant. And then when that is complete, I will ask the public to come forward if they wish to provide input to council. When you come forward, please give your name and address so that we can contact you if necessary in the future. We ask that you limit your comments to 5 minutes so that everybody gets an opportunity to speak. And I would caution that if you have a lot of things to say, try to say them all when you come up to the mic. Our procedures bylaw limits members of the public to 1 trip to the mic so that you won't have an opportunity to come back. If you have questions, I will make note of them, and when public input is finished, I will invite the applicant back to the mic to answer any questions that came up and or ask for answers from staff if that is how they are directed. Madam Clerk, could you read out the item for tonight, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item is 1516 Mount Dunn Crossroad. The report of the Director of Planning is recommending the Council provide comments and recommendations further to the Agricultural Land Commission application and provide staff with direction on when to submit the application. The report also lays out approval for the rezoning application, approval for the development variance, and approval to provide to include the property in the sewer service area. That is the extent, Mr.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any additional information from staff? Seeing none, any questions of staff, Council? Councillor Sanders.
Thank you, Councillor Chairman. I have a few. The first one to the engineering department. In the environmental section, it's mentioned that the site servicing concept plan doesn't include in-ground hydro telephone and cable. Can you comment on that?
So through the chair to Councillor Sanders, if you give me some moment, I can come back to it, but I can't comment on it right now.
Okay, can I ask you one other question while you're searching for that one? Under the developing servicing requirements, I noticed that it is standard for a strata subdivision that there is no parking on one side and in the cul-de-sac. This proposal has on-street parking on both sides. How does this address the requirement in the servicing requirement? Well, no parking on one side.
And sorry, are you referring to the on-street parking for Mount Doug?
No, I'm referring to the on-street parking in the strata, in the subdivision itself. It's under the servicing requirement, and there's no parking on one side and on the cul-de-sac. That's a typical for a strata subdivision.
Maybe that's something I can ask the Director of Planning to talk about.
I've got some questions from her too, so maybe I'll move on.
Okay, yeah.
In terms of parking, obviously there's best practice, but when you're dealing with a site with multiple trees, giving the flexibility to accommodate parking where it can be and have minimal impact on the trees, I think is the best option in this regard, which is what the applicant has proposed.
Okay, so then the requirement in the development service, the service requirements for no parking on one side would not apply then in this situation.
In my opinion, and I again would defer to the Director of Engineering because it is his department that made those recommendations. In my opinion, the best, as I said, optimal situation would be to look at how to avoid trees rather than following to a standard practice of one side only.
Okay, thank you. Next question, do you know how many parking spaces are being provided per property, per lot?
The obligation of the zoning bylaw is 2 per dwelling. And they have been provided.
Is this, I noticed it said that single access driveways, was this being in tandem?
The appearance, based on the lot layout, is single access to avoid, again, trees and roots.
Okay, so be tandem. We can comment again in the environment section was that people don't like single wide driveways and they'll apply for a permit to make it double.
They can certainly apply, based on the outcome of this evening and any subsequent meeting that council may send this application to, such as public hearing. It is not uncommon for the approving officer to predetermine, based on assistance from the applicant and their arborist, the optimal areas for a driveway to be located, and then that is secured through a covenant administered by the approving officer. It gives a bit of buffer, so you have a bit of room for movement, but it targets the optimal area for the driveway entrance to the road.
Okay, thank you. And are they proposing secondary suites? I didn't see anything in there.
Not to my knowledge, but you'd need to clarify absolutely with the applicant when they present.
But they would be able to build a family accommodation. Is that correct?
Based on the current zoning, yes, you could accommodate family accommodation, yes, and it's also eligible to be suited if that's what the applicant is desiring.
Okay, thank you. And the registration of the building scheme, who monitors that? Who has the oversight of it to ensure that what's in the building scheme is followed through on?
Be administered through the planning department in conjunction with the applicant. I believe the applicant has secured the services of an architect to review the submissions prior to having the building permits put into the District of Saanich.
So in the future, once it's built out and everything, and 10 years down the road, who again follows that? If the homeowners decide on their own to change something or do something differently, does that still have some oversight? Is it a covenant, or how does it work?
If council proceeds forward with a restrictive covenant to secure that item, ultimately any changes would need to come back to council for review and consideration.
Thank you very much. The engineer has
Sorry, through the chair to Councillor Sanders. Just to answer the one question about the 6-meter width in regards to the no parking on one side. I think the 6-meter width was proposed probably from the applicant, but the no parking is a requirement for fire truck access. So if we allowed parking on both sides, we're not going to have through movement for the fire truck as well as through the cul-de-sac. The cul-de-sac is too narrow to facilitate parking around it.
Okay, thank you. And what about the business on the utilities not showing on the map?
And that's one I'll get back to.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Councillor Brownhoff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just, at this stage, only have 2 questions. To the planner, please. So this is a strata subdivision. So could you just provide some examples of the difference between strata subdivision and, say, the fee simple one, which is Mercer Place? I'm thinking with the road, again, going back to parking, but could you explain the difference between strata and fee simple?
Fee simple is you own your lot outright. The primary difference between that and a strata subdivision is you also own the road and the services that run underneath it. It's similar to, say, a private strata for multiple family building where you own the services and the roadway. So that's the primary difference.
Can you tell me the width of the road difference, though? Because my understanding is strata.